while I was teaching, I first got into earth and environmental sciences, and that was such a fun subject to teach, and not to just anybody. I was teaching seniors. So these are children who are about to go spend their first year in college. And I felt like it was part of my duty to just be as enthusiastically excited about, sustainability and their future. And I told them some of the same things my grad professor told me, like, you're never going to know what you're really going to get into. You think you do, but you don't.
Welcome to Thinking Outside the Soil with your host, Shawnee Alfalfaseed, where we get to talk story and touch on topics about hydroponics and the farmers who grow the crops and creatures we need to eat. Well, good morning, and welcome. Today, we have a special guest with us. Rachel van Bodungen is a subject matter expert on chickens and hydroponics, and she's graciously consented to this interview to share her knowledge and experience so farmers like you out there can understand how to be more self-reliant and become sustainable chicken farmers so we can be the best stewards that we can be. Rachel, thank you for joining us interview today.
Dawn, thank you so much for having me. It is an absolute pleasure. I am your number one fan.
Well, thank you. Rachel and I go back a little bit, if you don't mind just telling them a bit about, maybe how we met each other, and then we'll just jump into how you got started and what maybe the farmers out there can learn and apply to themselves when it comes to hydroponic fodder or any other sustainable chicken advice you might have for them.
So, for viewers and listeners did not know already, Sean and I actually used to work at Sierra Energies, and then that got changed to NGL at some point. And we were in charge of the wastewater facility for recycling the fracking water for the nearby Bell County oil refineries for the drillers. Sean and I actually got really close because he shares a common person that I happened to intern as in my, early college career, and before I started there, in aquaculture. So in a very, very male-dominated industry, it was very nice to have an ally on my side to support me, and even more so, nerd out with me in all things water quality, and constantly looking for ways to reduce chemicals so that way we can make the water better. And NaClO, how much ferric oxide can we put into it? How much sludge can we make? I hope that sludge was not as wet as the last one. It was good times.
It was good. It's been a bit. You never know where things go, and today we're going to talk about some of those things that we learned. So we'll just jump right into what your thoughts would be about yourself and maybe terms of background outside of what you've shared with how we know each other, so people can understand that and how it's related to chickens, let's say.
Time a little bit just to give you an idea of how exactly
Awesome.
It is that I got into aquaculture. I am one of those students who went to not one, not two, not three, but 4 colleges because, everybody takes a different path in life and a different journey, and everything works out the way that it does for a reason. But I remember when I started at the University of New Orleans, one of my grad professors said that you don't get to pick what it is that you get into. That's just going to come by chance as you go through college, and it's going to fall into your lap. And a lot of people didn't expect they would end up where they were. And so for me, when I started over there, my first internship was at Aquaculture Systems Technology. And I was a research technician. And little did I know that was just like the beginning of my experience in water quality. So I was in charge of, taking care of the fish, and I was in charge of counting rotifers. And one of my big projects with the rotifers was to count the eggs on them. And what we didn't know at the time was this like very concentrated bottle of algae that we were using was like, what's the word I'm looking for? It was basically fogging up all the tank, and it was creating a bunch of waste, and it was choking out the life. And I decided after a certain point, well, this is stupid. I don't want to use this. There was some bagged algae that another grad student was trying to grow. And so I would just pull from that, and I would start pouring it into the rotifer tanks. So I took a freshwater algae, and I was mixing it in salt water. And I was just gradually doing it over time. And what we had learned is that the algae was adapting to the new conditions, and we were getting rotifers with anywhere between 2 to 5 eggs at a time. And again, for aquaculture purposes, rotifers are going to be used for your hatchlings, your little baby fish when they're growing out in your aquaculture facilities. So that was really, really exciting. It was such a great part of my experience. And through my years over there, another grad student had decided that he wanted to put up an aquaponic, which is aquaculture meets hydroponics, but instead of using, fertilizers for plant growth, you're just using the waste from the fish. So we had put up a couple of systems on top of the local grocery, and then we had some lobster systems at some local restaurants, and we would go check out their progress and see how the productivity was doing. And so that was my first experience into it. I left in 2013 and I moved to Colorado. And when I moved to Colorado from New Orleans, I was very fortunate. I was recommended before I left, go check out Colorado Aquaponics. Yeah. So in 2013, which is another connection with Sean and I started volunteering at Colorado Aquaponics with JD Sawyer and his wife Tanya. And I was just blown away with their setup, and was totally obsessed with the beds and all the root vegetables that they can grow on top of the usual seedlings in the rafts or the hanging columns. And to see all the different variety that they were growing, it was just so cool. And I learned how to farm for my first time when I worked with them. Then I jumped into that. Obviously didn't work out for the long run because I was doing a commute from Denver to Colorado Springs every day. And it's the north side of Denver. So if you guys aren't familiar with that, like we're looking at an hour and 15-minute drive plus traffic in Denver, like, ugh. So we kind of both agreed that it was a little much and I would always be welcome, but I would take my own business and go find some other places to be successful. So I met Sean at NGL and we worked there for a couple years. And after I left NGL and continued on with my life, I eventually found myself teaching. While I was teaching, I first got into earth and environmental sciences, and that was such a fun subject to teach, and not to just anybody. I was teaching seniors. So these are children who are about to go spend their first year in college. And I felt like it was part of my duty to just be as enthusiastically excited about, sustainability and their future. And I told them some of the same things my grad professor told me, like, you're never going to know what you're really going to get into. You think you do, but you don't. Within that sustainability route, because, environmental science and everything that's happening in the world, we were able to talk about solutions. And one of the solutions that I loved to talk about with them was all about aquaculture and hydroponics, and telling them, you don't always have to rely on the things that you see. And what's normal right now is not going to be normal in the future. So you have to learn to adapt. And, this is a really great method because you're not just making your own plants, but you're growing this fish life too. And so now if you really wanted to get into making money off of it, you've got two different products that you can sell. And of course, while I started teaching, the fabulous part of it is that you get summers off. So every summer I would return to Colorado because I have a connection in Black Forest. Morgan Hamilton, who is the owner and proprietor of Moake Farm, is one of my best friends. And so I always came up in the summer to help her in the chicken coops. So my first summer up there, I was introduced to chicks and taking them from when they arrive and dipping their little beaks in the water and then counting each and every one of them and then setting up the chick feed and having the lamps all set up, on top of just the usual farm duties of picking eggs and, you know, cleaning them and delivering them. My second year, I was introduced to meat hens, and this was the year of COVID, and we got to learn about how much work goes into raising a meat hen versus raising a laying hen. And that was very interesting. And on top of that, because it was the year during COVID, the slaughterhouses were all closed down. So I feel like, and again, I'm not living in Colorado at the time, so I don't really know, but it kind of gave me this idea of how backed up they are, in addition to, you know, like, what's the work environments like over there? Like, are they closed down because of how many people it takes to work there? Are they closed down because they're overwhelmed? Or are they... So I don't have the 100% of the story, but it makes me think a lot about what's going on in other practices that we can do to alleviate some of the pressures off of the slaughterhouses. But again, still just the normal farm life, picking eggs, delivering eggs. And then my third year coming up there, we actually had a consultation, Sean and I. Morgan, my business partner, and I have been having these conversations regularly about setting up hydroponics. And she had this idea before you and I had talked about it, but she wasn't sure where to go. So I laid out a couple ideas. I told her what I was thinking. We spent a day in the farm setting up our, you know, oh, we could do it like this, it can go like that. You know, we'll have our gravity feed go into different areas, and then we'll have it recirculate back up, and I'll just do it over and over again. It'll be fantastic. Super easy. So I came out, and he inspected and improved, because this is how learning occurs. You map out, you ask an authority figure, hey, what do you think? And so someone came out and helped us set it up. We are unfortunately not running it yet, but that's coming. But yes, we started doing, we're setting up for the hydroponics. We are expanding for this upcoming summer, and I'm going to be moving up there in June for full-time farm commitment. That'll be the next chapter of No Egg Farm.
It's absolutely awesome. It sounds a lot like some of my experiences with getting into chickens. A lot of people get into broilers, and when you were telling that story too, it's funny. I don't think I've ever told you that story. I actually got into doing meat birds during the pandemic as well, the same year. I was looking for a farm site for our place, and I met a lady who was raising meat birds, and we raised them too long, actually. And one of the neighbor farmers came over and was like, I think your birds need to get slaughtered. So I remember just all those learning curves that you think you know what you want to know about birds, and as you go along with it, there's just so much you can.
I'm really glad that you say that, because it reminds me of how thankful I am to have someone like Morgan, who has the experience with the birds. She's been doing this for 10 years plus, and she's the chicken whisperer. She just knows, and there's a lot that I learn from her, and I'm glad that I have her as a resource, because right now with school and everything, it's difficult to be able to sit down, read a book, and say, okay, this breed of chicken is going to live for somewhere between 60 to 90 days, so you need to be able to take the slaughter at that point. Or this bird's going to lay a lot of eggs versus this bird. Oh, and don't forget, this bird's heat tolerant and cold tolerant, but this one's only heat tolerant but not cold tolerant. And yeah, there's a lot that goes into it that I really don't, I never thought that it would be that complex.
Did you guys rely on any other type of mentors or anything else? Or did Morgan share any type of mentors or who helped maybe guide her along the way out there for those that maybe want to get started with chickens or been doing chickens for a while and have questions that they may not know where to look?
For me, all of my mentors come from my my education, my higher education, uh, because I started off in aquaculture. I have to give a big shout out to Professor John Caruso at Tulane University. He's taught me so much about different species of fish and had an appreciation for what it is that these marine organisms need in order to survive. Because again, a lot of people don't understand that there's oxygen in water and CO2 in water. And I appreciate very much that he gave me that first seed of inspiration. I am so grateful that I've had two of the perfect aquaculture mentors, in my most honest opinion. Dr. James Ebling, who wrote the Little Green Bible of Recirculating Aquaculture. He wrote it with Tim Simmons. Don't quote me on that. Sorry if I got that wrong. But he was my first professor, and he taught me everything that I needed to know about water quality and the denitrification process. And, even though I'm throwing a lot of my mentors into water, it's not just water. It's about the animal processes that are doing what it's doing to the abiotic factors. So adding in nitrogen, adding in carbon dioxide, adding in waste, adding in phosphorus. Taking that plus everything that I've learned as a teacher, teaching environmental science and teaching biology and teaching AP biology, I'm able to take these real world situations that I've actually been in and relate those experiences to what it is that I know. And I feel like such a more confident person in the end to be able to say, I am ready to jump out into a farm and do this and bring in these plant fodder and help supplement that is food that it is to feed them, and hopefully reduce the amount of water that's used to raise them, because sustainability and our ability to do sustainable things doesn't just come from human choices, but it has to do a lot with the animals that we interact with and how they are relating into the environment as well, in addition to the producers that we grow that are going to be able to, do their photosynthesis to reduce what it can and for, global warming and feed a flock, and it's the basis of life. So I am very grateful for my mentors who I've had, and of course I am going to have to throw out a couple more if that's all right.
Absolutely.
Morgan,
share all you can.
Morgan is my chicken goddess. She is the empress of the chicken empire, and of course I know that you were my friend, but there's been so much that I've learned from you in our years that we have known each other and grown together. And I listened to your book on audio as I was driving up to Colorado, and I just am completely blown away. You've always given me really great resources to use in the classroom. I am quoting from your book things to my kids, especially my AP kids. These are things that they should know because of their AP bio students. And we talk about cell communication and homeostasis all the time. And of course, we start off the entire unit with biomacromolecules and how they break down in our body. But to tell them that a well-balanced diet isn't just for humans, it's for our animals too. Again, it's just not something that people think about on a regular basis. So I'm blessed to have had such wonderful people influence my, progression in life.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. I've learned so much from you. I remember a story kind of popped into my head while you were telling me about Morgan being the chicken goddess. And for those of you out there, when I got a chance to go out to their property, it's this gorgeous farm just tucked in the forest. Black Forest is reminiscent of an old world forest, just big pine trees. And got to watch her go into the yard for the first time. And when she went and grabbed the scratch, the chickens just all followed her in a way that was just amazing. and they came out of the woodworks, and I got to see literally 1,000 chickens walk in the methods that she has. So I knew right away that I was in the presence of somebody that I could even learn a lot from too. So it doesn't really surprise me too much that there's a lot packed into all of the stuff you've learned, and it shows me, why you're so excited to just be around someone like that. You've come to Colorado summer after summer, and now you are going to be a permanent resident here being a chicken farmer. So we're pretty excited. Hey, before you go, check out the links below. And if you'd be so kind as to leave a rating and review and follow the show. For those with feathered friends, don't forget to get yourself some of our Blooming Health Farms Chicken Blend Sprouting Mix. This supplemental mix has been shown to give you some of the best eggs with the yummiest yolks. You'll have happy, healthy hens that abandon the feeder and give you eggs with high levels of vitamin A and omega fatty acids. So don't forget to get yourself some Blooming Health Farms Chicken Blend Sprouting Mix.